Alright, got the fully synthetic motor.
So if you're going to buy a second-hand car, this is literally the car you want, or something like this. This is a 2006 Toyota Corolla. You remember the old stories in the old days where, you know, you bought a car from an old lady who only drove to the shops? This is that car. This is that car. It was bought brand spanking new in 2006. This is my mom.
Hello, Graham.
She's 72 and she drives this car, I promise you, to the shops and to church. That's the only driving she ever does. Let me explain a couple of things quickly. Right, so let's do a quick walk around this car if this is the car that you're going to want to buy. First thing, switch on the ignition and check all the different lights. And what you're looking for is when you start the car is that all these lights should go off. Car starts easily enough. I don't have a safety belt on at the moment, so the safety belt light is going to stay on and the handbrake light is staying on. If I take it off, the handbrake is off. Right, and with that also, I can tell you that this handbrake needs adjusting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You want it to engage on 3 clicks. The next thing that you would like to pay attention to is how does the car idle? And this one idles very smoothly. It's done a total of 96,401 kilometers since new, and that's significant for a couple of different reasons. Number one is obviously the age of the car. You would like to see what sort of mileage this car has done. The second thing that you want to do, this car is 14 years old, and the average mileage that people do per year, which is considered normal, is between 20 and 25,000 kilometers per year. So with a car that is 16 years old, 14 years old, you expect that that number would be seriously bigger than that. So on a car of this age, you can expect the normal mileage to be in the region of about 350,000 kilometers. So if you buy a car that is 14 years old and it's done around 300,000 kilometers, it's done normal mileage. This particular example has done an average of about, my math is failing me today, it's done an average of around 7,000, don't quite quote me on that, about 7,000 kilometers per year as an average. Now, you also don't want to go and buy a car that has a mileage of something like 10,000 or 15,000 on it and the car is 15 years old. That car hasn't driven. Cars that don't get driven break. Cars need to be driven. That's just a basic rule of thumb. Right, so now we've looked at all the numbers, and while you're in here, start pressing buttons. Push all the buttons. Okay, that one there, I hope you can see it. Comes on, that's the rear diffuser, and you can hear when I push it that the sound of the car changes. Hazards work. Misters work. Indicators work. Wipers work. Indicators work. And later on you obviously walk around the car to check that they work on the outside as well. Hooter works. Lights work. And again, later you'll walk around the car and make sure, so I'm going to leave them on, that all those lights are working. Switch on the fan, see that all these selectors work. Fresh air and not. Air conditioner works. Check that the heater actually works. This car's already hot, so yes, the heater works. Check that the radio works, and I can't leave it on because that's copyright stuff, but check that the radio works. Stick a CD in here and see if the CD player actually plays. And it's literally a case of work your way through the car step by step. Everything that you see that this thing opens properly. There's a service manual in here. Check the service manual and see that it was serviced on a regular basis and who actually serviced it. This is very important. This car has got mags on it, and it's got a special key to be able to open to take the wheels off the mags. Make sure that you've got those tools if that's the case with your car. We're going to go to the bonnet next and then to the boot. just before we go to the front of the car, to the bonnet, anything that you find inside here that doesn't work is a bargaining chip, is something that you can negotiate with. So just always note down the things that don't work, because that's when you start negotiations. Okay, similar to with the 370Z, pull the little tab to open the bonnet, and let's go to the front. Right, and similar to the 370Z, there's a little tab here. That's a little tab that you push, and there's the little bonnet stay that we're going to use to prop up the bonnet. Remember when I told you that I quite like cars with dirty engines? This is why. Dirty engines tell stories. If it's too clean in here, someone may have cleaned something up. Not saying that they did, but they may have cleaned something up. Dirty motors don't hide their secrets very well. So if you start looking into the motor and you start looking at all the different areas, and you start seeing oil leaks, water leaks, anything like that, and take that, read it in conjunction with the mileage of the car. I mean, this has done 100,000 kilometers, and there's no visible signs of any leaks here. Here's the battery over here. These batteries are normally marked. Start scratching around here. I know for a fact that we changed this quite recently, but you can also see it's a fairly new battery, so you know that you're probably good for 2 to 3 years, keeping in mind that a battery is now a consumable item. So yeah, you don't concern about batteries too much. A little bit of rust there at the bottom of the battery tray. Again, nothing to be concerned about. This is probably just battery acid that ran out over time. I mean, 14 years. You're not buying a new car. Hoses look in very decent condition. There's no perishes, there's no water running out of them. Let's do the whole walking around the car thing, and then we're also going to go into the boot, because there's some stuff I want to mention there. Look at the windscreen. Cracks, chips, those sort of things. Keeping in mind, in certain countries they won't allow a chip even to go through the road test, and you may have to spend money fixing that. But windscreens can be expensive. Look at the car overall, condition of the paint. A car that's 14 years old, that doesn't have a few nicks and scratches, was probably recently painted, and then you need to ask why. Why was that car recently painted? Obviously we want to look at the wheels. We would like to inspect those, and like I showed you the other day, also inspect when they were actually manufactured. Now, a correction on that is that the other day I said it's the month and the year that it was actually manufactured, and I'll put a picture of that up just now. It's the week and the year that it was manufactured. I made a small mistake over there. Alright, and we look at the mirrors, and they're all intact and not falling off. A little mark over here. The mirror itself not damaged at all. Open the door, look at everything over here. Earlier we checked the windows, they're working fine. The lock mechanisms work fine. Here's the little thing to open the boot and the filler cap. We're going to get to that just now. Here on the back door, there's a little scuff mark. That's a nice negotiation point if you want to negotiate price off this oak. The little aerial is in place. It's just a decent car. Lights whole, not cracked. We're going to check that they're working just now. In the boot, quite important, is the tools, or are the tools that comes with the car. There needs to be a spare wheel in here, and the spare needs to be inflated and of a decent quality. Jack and the basic tools that come with the car. Inspect those, make sure that they are in place. A condition of a boot is always a telltale sign of how the car experienced its life. You find a car with a dirty, nasty boot, you're probably going to find a car that had a hard life. Find a car with a very clean boot like this, and you're probably going to find a car that was very well looked after and very well taken care of. Light, good condition, nothing wrong there, not excessively faded. Filler cap worked. We obviously opened that to check. Open it up, check that it opens easily, closes easily. Alright. And that's about it for the paint work on any car that you want to buy. Note everything that you see, because all of it becomes negotiation points. Next thing you would like to do is to get underneath the car. Okay, right, whoa, let me do this. So do wear old clothes or some jeans and stuff, because you would like to take a nice peek underneath here. Obviously, again, checking for oil leaks, water leaks, any sort of fluid coming out, excessive amounts of grease around the tires, and wear underneath the car. So you would like to see if there's much damage or any damage underneath the car here, which again will indicate that the car had a hard life or not. And again, you can see this is truly that old lady's car that drove to the shops and to the church. I know my mom doesn't drive very fast or very vigorously, so good to go down there. And then of course, if you live in countries where there's lots of rain, if you live in countries where they get cold weather and they use salt on the roads, you need to check for rust also. This car doesn't have any rust, so I'm going to find it difficult to show you, but at the bottom of any sills, at the bottom of the car, any seams, those sort of things, you want to check for rust and just make sure that the car is sound in its structure. Okay, so today we're going to teach you a top tip or top trick if you need to service your car. So we've come to our local Midas, and let me quickly show you something very cool. Remember to sanitize. Jason, how's it going?
Good, thanks in here.
Lekker man. Jason, I'm servicing my Toyota Corolla 2006 1.6.
Yes.
And I need a service kit for it, please.
Alright, 2006 1.6.
Correct.
Alright, so full service, oil filter, air filter, pollen filter, spark plugs, and 5 litre oil.
That sounds good, yeah.
Alright, got the fully synthetic motor, GD filters, NGK spark plugs, and the pollen filter, air filter, and oil filter.
Awesome stuff. No fuel filter for this car?
No, sits in the tank.
Awesome
so
stuff.
Filter, yes.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, not a problem. Thank you, sir.
Cool, ring that up for me and let's go.
Alright.
Thanks, Jason.
Not a problem. Enjoy the weekend, fella.
Congratulations, you walked around the car, you enjoy what you see, you decide this is the one for you. What next? So the first thing that I would do if I bought a car second-hand, footstewards, from a private person, as we pretending to do over here, is I would perform a really basic service on the car, and I'm going to show you how to do that it'll take me less than half an hour. What are the things that we need? Fairly simply, the stuff that we bought yesterday. Alright, so oil of the quantity and grade that was recommended, a pollen filter, air filter, 4 plugs in the case of this car, and an oil filter, because we don't change oil without changing the oil filter. In addition to that, there might be a fuel filter for your car, but as the guy from Midas pointed out to us yesterday, this car has a permanent fuel filter fitted in the fuel tank, so we cannot actually change that unit. Let's get on with this and show you how easy it is. Since we already showed you how to do an oil change on a car, I'm going to start with the oil change on this guy and not re-record it, because that's just rehashing the same stuff. After I've done the oil change, I'll come back and show you how to fit the air filter and how to fit the pollen filter, and we'll quickly change the spark plugs. Right, and literally 10 minutes later, we are ready to check the oil level finally. Same story. And the oil level is perfect. Right, now while we're in here, we're going to take off this cover, and you'll notice that it's a little bit cleaner, because now that it's your car, we can start wiping off with just an old cloth, wipe off the dust and stuff. If you would like to clean this engine bay, old cloth or just some nice warm clean water, not a wet cloth, a damp cloth, and just wipe away the dust. That's really the only thing that you want to do, so that it looks neat underneath here. If you use any products like silicone products, those things actually attract dust, and your engine bay is going to look like crap very quickly. And this is a good example of that. Obviously, someone used some silicone at some point on this hose over here, and you can see how it's discolored over time. The hose itself is still flexible, so you're still okay there. No need to replace this guy. There's no cracks in it. If there was any cracks in it, or if it was hard, we would consider changing that. I'm going to remove this cover. There are two 10mm bolts over here. Very easy to remove, and that'll expose the plugs at the bottom. So here, okay, it's not going to come out. Just like that. And here we see our 4 coil packs, and underneath there is where we will locate our spark plugs. Very simply, take out the 10mm bolts and pull out. Let me do one and show you. And pull out the actual coil pack. Just like that. And the entire coil pack comes out. Okay, they want to come out all of them at the same time. Let me quickly finish that and then I'll show you some more. Good. And with the coil packs removed, we can now access the spark plugs, which lives in the bottom over there. Now, the advantage of what we are doing is that we have brand new spark plugs where we can go and check what size they are. But as a general rule of thumb, please focus, thank you. As a general rule of thumb, it is a 16mm tube socket, and this is just what that is. All right. Another rule of thumb that you can remember, for the most part on most things, lefty loosey, righty tighty. Left way around or anti-clockwise to loosen any bolt, clockwise or righty to fasten. This is the truth for 99% of all the bolts on a car. The only thing that really differs from that is some suspension parts that I can think of quickly now. Let's quickly take them out. Many spark plug spanners will come with a little rubber insert that will pull out the plug as soon as it's loose so that you can get it out there. If you've lost it or it doesn't have that, top tip, take the actual coil pack, wiggle it in there and grab the spark plug to bring it out. Now, these spark plugs really don't need to be changed. They're actually in quite good nick. But you know what? We bought them in any case. Let's replace them. Now, when you look at the new plug, and you may have heard about spark plug gaps, that's the gap between the cathode and the anode over there, and that needs to be pretty precise. Bonus, these plugs, because they're built for these types of cars, come pre-gapped. You don't have to concern too much about the gap on those oaks. Oh, and before I forget, it's important to check that the plugs that they gave you match the plugs that you're taking out of the car. And also, while you're in here, just check that the plugs that you take out look okay. They shouldn't be too black, too dry, too wet, too anything. If there's excessive amounts of oil on here, that probably indicates something wrong with the motor or something. So yeah, just check them so that they look nice and clean as these ones look. Something else to keep in mind is this little washer over here on the new plugs will be thicker than this guy. That is the amount of slack that you would like to take up when you tighten down the spark plug. So you don't need to over tighten these things. I tighten them with the hand as much as I can, and then once they're in there, I take my socket and just with the fingers like this, I give it probably another quarter to a half a turn. There, it's stuck. That was like a half a turn. And that is tight enough. Do not over tighten spark plugs. If you strip that thing inside that head, you're in for some serious bucks. And with the coil packs reinstalled where they're supposed to go, they can only go in one place. Really, you'll really battle to get them in different places. We can now check if everything is running properly. Foot on the clutch, make sure she's out of gear. Perfect. This job is really as simple as ticking off the items they gave you as part of the service kit. And the only two things that we've got left, air filter and pollen filter. Now, since the pollen filter typically is installed inside the car and we are under the engine bay at the moment, let's finish the air filter while we're at it. Fairly simple. They typically have 2 or 4 locating clips. Lift up the lid, which exposes the air filter. Pull it out and put it back in. Now, I only have one hand to do this with, or the camera down very quickly to be able to show you this. And that's the old versus the new. Just also note the orientation when you take it out. Your filter might not look exactly like this, but do note the orientation when you take it out so that you can install it in the exact same way. And this is the dirty side. This is where it sucks the air from the bottom, and the other side is the clean side. All right, simple as that. Pop the filter into there, relocate the tabs, air filter installed. Just like that, 20 minutes later, we are done in here. And the tools I needed: 16mm tube socket on a ratchet, and a 10mm socket to take off these guys over here. Really basic tools. Most of the rest was done with my hands. Well, all of the rest was done with my hands. Let's go inside the car quickly and show you how to change the pollen filter. On most cars you will find the pollen filter in the passenger footwell or somewhere hereabouts. On this 1600 2006 model Corolla, there's a little tab that you pull there and a little tab that you pull here on the glove compartment. And if you look underneath there, it is your little pollen filter tray right there. Simply pull it out, replace the filter. Let me show you what it looks like. Okay, and just like that, push it in there. It's quite a tight fit, obviously, because it needs to be airtight so that all the air that comes into the car filters through this guy before it gets into the cabin. Put it back into its spot over there. Done and dusted. Pollen filter replaced. Right, and that's literally how easy and quick it is to service any car for that matter. So while we were inspecting the car yesterday, we noticed something really alarming. Do you guys remember these numbers? The week and the year that the car is manufactured? Do you remember that thing I spoke about, dry rot? This is just scary. So that's going to be a wrap for this video, but check you in the next video where we quickly take this car to our friends over at Expert Wheel and Tire, because that's not acceptable. Like, subscribe, comment. See you in the next one.